Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Spotlight on History. I'm Mary Helen Dellinger, curator of the Manassas Museum, and I'm so glad that you can join us today. I'm coming to you from our main gallery, where we're going to look at some pieces from our antique farming tools in our collection. Yes, that's right, antique farming tools. We have quite a few of those that we were going to share with you today. Two are on long-term exhibit here at the museum, and one I've pulled from our storage facility, so that'll be a little bit of a treat. Now, I chose the topic of farming tools today because on October 28, 1793, Eli Whitney applied for the patent on his cotton gin. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard of the cotton gin, and that invention had a huge impact on the American South, doubling the yield of raw cotton in those states that produced it. The gin, however, did not reduce the number of enslaved persons needed to grow the cotton. It reduced the amount of labor required to remove the seeds from the plants, but had no impact on the labor that was required to plant and pick. So because the gin doubled the amount of cotton that you could actually produce on the back end, if anything, it increased the amount of enslaved labor that someone would be able to use on the front end of the process. Now, the museum does not own a cotton gin. We're not going to see one of those today. Virginia was not a cotton-growing state. Instead, farmers here produced staple grains like corn and wheat. And while Manassas is also known as being a dairy town as well as a train town, there were also plenty of farms in this area that grew grains. And our collection has numerous pieces that speak to that type of farming. So we're going to start right here with this plow on my right, your left. This was pulled by a single mule or horse or oxen with the farmer walking along behind to keep it straight. The wheel in the front helped to push the piece along. And I'm told that an animal was not really required to operate the plow, but it certainly made it easier to do so. The framework is all wood, and the blade and some of the smaller pieces that hold it together are made of iron, and the blade is original. You can see how big that is right there. Now, this particular blade would furrow deep into the ground and push the soil up on either side that would create a row for planting. These particular types of plows came into widespread use during the mid-19th century, and this particular example was used right here at Clover Hill Farm in Manassas. And I can tell you that it's heavier than you would think. We've moved it before, and it weighs quite a bit, and I think most of that is probably in the weight of that blade. Now, sometimes a plow would also be used in tandem with a corn seeder, and I've pulled a corn seeder from the collection. This is what it looks like. This is also called a bill pick by farmers, and it assisted with the planting of corn. So to use this, the farmer would shove the point into the ground and then push the handles together at the top. This action caused the machine to open and the seed to drop. And you can see this little container here on the side. That's where you'd flip up the lid on the top and you'd put the seed in there, and it would funnel down through the hollow end of that. So this method of planting was much easier and quicker on the back than planting by hand. So you would just push it into the ground. You would push both handles together, and as you can see there, that causes the thing at the bottom to open up, and then you would pull back. And then as you walked along the row, you would just use your foot to scrape over the dirt, and you'd be done with planting in that particular area. Now, I was curious about how this was done today. I'm not a farmer, so I looked up online, and I found some images. This particular image is a tractor pulling a plowing mechanism behind it. So there you can see that it's pulling and furrowing rows into the dirt on this particular farm. I saw ones that were twice as long as that. So that's what a plow would look like today, being pulled mechanically. And this is a tractor also pulling a seeding mechanism that would have taken the place of the second piece that I just showed you. So the seeds go in those little white containers in the back. You pull it along and it drops into the ground, again pulled by a tractor. So the tractor seems to be the key piece in this type of operation. Now we're going to walk just a few feet over to my left, to your right, and we're going to look at another piece of farming equipment that's in our collection. And this is called a grain separator or a fanning mill, various names for this. Now note that I'm doing these farm implements in a particular order: preparation, the plow; planting, the corn seeder; and now harvesting. So this is a machine that would have been used for the harvesting end of it. This type of machine was invented in 1852, so mid-19th century. Its purpose was to separate the wheat from the chaff being dirt, various parts of the plants you don't want, any type of foreign objects that would be caught up in the plants. The harvested product was put down into the top, and the user would crank this handle right here on the side. And there's a wooden paddle on the inside and like a fan, and that would turn and that would begin the separation process as it would fan its way out. Now what you can't see as it fell down through these blades, inside here in this part are some very fine screens. The one on the top has larger holes than the one on the bottom has even smaller. And they shook back and forth like this. And as they did that, the product would further fall through. Grain seeds are very small, and it would collect in a drawer that would slide in right here. Ours is missing, unfortunately, the example of the drawer. Now, this was a very efficient process for just a very small operation on a farm to separate wheat from chaff. Our fanning mill shows its original coat of paint, though faded and well-worn from use. Red was a typical color that they used. There used to be a name right here of the company that sold it, but that has faded away and we're not able to see what that is. Now, I was curious how this was done today, and a grain separating machine today looks absolutely nothing like the other things that you would see. I had to look for several before I could find one that made sense to me. So this is an automatic machine. It clearly comes in here and comes out these chutes at the bottom, and it's all automated. So clearly much easier for people today that are farmers to bring their product to market. So there you have it, 3 pieces of farming equipment that we have in our collection. I hope you found that interesting. So the next time you're getting ready to prepare a meal in your kitchen, and it includes any type of grain or bread, think about farmers back then as opposed to farmers now, and the hard work it takes to get crops planted, harvested, and to your table. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Helen Dellinger, and I'll see you next week.